The Milwaukee FBI office had still failed to access Jenny Aliotta's apartment after all this time. They decided, you know what might work? They're like, how about this? We get him indicted on something really small and stupid, like perjury. And then when we go to arrest him, we make sure we arrest him while he's visiting the apartment.
So then we can get in the apartment. Yeah.
So we'll knock on the door with the warrant and we'll arrest him. While the agents are arresting him, we can look around the room and maybe we'll see something. And if we see something, we can request a search warrant to come back and search the apartment.
Okay.
So that's their next plan.
I mean, it might work, but it's like, that's the best you can come up with, I guess, you know?
No, it's a pretty good plan. But like they're not trying that hard. Like, they're really dragging this out. And, like we'll see in the future, like other things that they do, and they do some, it gets shady. It gets really shady what they do. Like at first, they're going to end up renting the apartment across the hall and just like, kind of like looking through the peephole all day. Like, that's relatively minor, but like they're going to keep stepping it up and crossing into the territory where they're blatantly breaking the law, trying to get into this apartment.
Is that it for it?
Yeah, that's it for now.
So,
like I said, like there's not really a great end because this is going to continue. Like, spoiler, he ends up going to prison for tax problems, but that's not till 1971.
Yeah, so we got a long ways of this being dragged out.
Yeah,
which.
So we're just going to check in every so often on how this goes.
So the thing that's crazy about this one to me is that, I don't know. I guess I would have tooled up that the mafia was resourceful and smart about the crimes they were committing. And it just sounds like, I mean, his strategy when he initially gets indicted for tax fraud is to just show up to the appointment without his books.
I don't think he's even indicted yet. I think at this point they're just kind of looking into it.
Yeah, like I just feel like on the back end the mafia would have had like books created to make this look legitimate.
Yeah.
But it seems like they didn't even bother. They just flatly ignored the fact that they were supposed to be paying taxes and just did not care.
That's definitely the way it seems. Yeah.
Which, I mean, and maybe that's just this time. That's all they had to do because it's still without even really having any books, it still takes them like 20 years to convict the guy or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, is it stupid to not even make an attempt to cover your tracks? Yeah, incredibly. But I'm going to give Frank credit here because what Frank is really good at is having attorneys. He's really good at always having attorneys, and that can get you a long way. If you got a good attorney, that can get you a long way.
Right, but if you have a good attorney and a dirty accountant working together to hide all this stuff, it's going to get you twice as far.
Probably, yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I'm just shocked that he never went that route. Or at least at this point, it doesn't seem like he's even bothering with that. You know, and it also swings back to like the previous, I think it was the last episode we recorded where we were talking about all these manufacturing companies that were bringing up and making these counterfeit toys. Well, they kind of tried to cover themselves, but it was really like a half effort to really hide the fact what they were doing. They were doing the minimum to be able to counterfeit a toy, which they could have gone a few more steps and made it a lot harder to realize what they were doing.
True.
And
yeah. And I should clarify for this episode, like this is coming out of FBI files. It's not coming out of the IRS files because the IRS does not give you files.
Yeah.
The IRS is good luck getting anything. They have Freedom of Information Act forms that you can fill out, but they're not going to give you anything.
They just disapprove them.
Yeah, yeah. I've never tried. Maybe you could get like a personnel file or something, but if it's anything related to anything about someone's taxes, they won't give it to you. So trying to get the IRS's side of this story, like I don't have it. So unless it was in the newspaper or it made it into the FBI file, I don't have that side. But
yeah, and when you look at it from that perspective, maybe the level of sophistication they were doing this at was a lot more. But the FBI just kind of glosses over that, where the IRS would understand more everything they were doing to cover up what they weren't doing that they should be doing to be legal, I guess.
Right, because, from the FBI's perspective, like, what they want to do is they want to nail him for something.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that one way to do that is to get him busted for these tax issues. But they have no enforcement of that. The FBI doesn't really care about, the accounting. Like, that's
and
not
they
their business.
They don't understand it either, so
right.
They can't really understand how sophisticated it is.
Right. So to their extent, it's like, well, how do we catch him doing something shady? And at that point, they'd have to turn it over anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, they're not, like, actively, like, show us your books. Like, the FBI doesn't care about that part.
Right.
But yeah, it is weird. But like I said, I got to give them some credit for the attorney thing. Like, at first, it sounds really dumb to show up. Like, when you're summoned to the IRS office and you show up and you have nothing, like, that seems really stupid. But it might not actually be that stupid because
they couldn't do it. They didn't know what to do when you brought nothing. So
right. I mean, like, the IRS is a scary thing, Like, as far as law enforcement goes, IRS is one of the scarier ones, I think. But really, like, they're the same as anyone else. Like, they have to prove that you did something wrong, and if the books don't exist, then it's on them. They got to find the evidence. So it sounds really dumb, but like, that's not the worst.
Yeah, I suppose.
So the less you turn over to them, the harder they have to work.
I mean, it almost makes it sound like the worse your books are, the better you're off, because it's harder to prove you did anything wrong, right?
Yeah.
So interesting.
I mean, I'm not encouraging people.
Don't cook your books or not have books because of.
Yeah, I mean, just do your taxes correctly. But seriously, like, back in this time, like, now, I assume that there's a major difference between the IRS in the 60s and today. Like, today, the IRS knows what you owe. Like, before you file, they know exactly what you owe.
Or they have a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, but, like, in the 60s, I have no idea, like, what they knew or didn't know. And these are all, like, restaurants and nightclubs, so it's, like, a largely cash business.
Yeah.
So they're not getting the numbers.
And you got to wonder, like, W-2s, did something like that even exist in the 60s? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't.
I would bet the W-2s existed, but how good were they about, automatically sending them in each year?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Like, they existed, but they maybe only received 60% of them and just didn't really do anything about the other 40% they never got and stuff like that.
I mean, by no means do I know a whole lot about how taxes work, but yeah, so this is it dumb? It's super dumb. But at the same time, like, it's going to work for a while.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, to us, to me on the surface, it's like there's so much more you could do. But I can't really take it away from him because he dragged it out for 10, 20 years, this case, before he ever gotten in any trouble for it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and he almost majorly wins on a technicality, but I'm not even going to mention what that technicality is because that's going to be a whole thing in itself. So
well, that's coming. That's coming in the future.
That's coming, and it's huge. it's like the most major legal violation that the FBI IRS were doing. They should have gotten a lot more trouble.
All right. So I guess we can wrap this episode up. Just know this is kind of the first part of a many part.
Yeah.
But it's not, we're not following this up right after.
No.
We're just going to come back and revisit it along the
We'll
timeline.
check in periodically.